Hey everyone, this is Jacky here. We're finally back on the YouTube platform. As you all know, for the last 6 months I've been kind of offline because we're dealing with our newborn. She was weighted, I think 8 pounds 3 ounces when we were born, so a very big baby, and she's still very fat to this day. 7 weeks old. Things are finally starting to settle, so I feel like I can hop back on the YouTube side. Now, to welcome myself back, I thought was a better topic than to talk about childcare cost, and I just want to share for the last 10 months lessons that we have learned and big ticket items that we didn't expect to spend on but we end up having to spend. So for newborn parents or expecting parents, hopefully I can help you better prepare for this journey from a money perspective, and also share some personal experience and tips and tricks on how you can better prepare yourself as well. Now before we start, help me click that like button. It will help us with the YouTube algorithm. Now without further ado, let's dive into today's video. So I'm going to take us all the way back to the beginning of pregnancy to start there. And I'm going to split this into 3 stages. This is before getting pregnant, during pregnancy, and after baby is here. So let's start off with before we're getting pregnant. And for many of us, like ourselves, if you weren't successful to naturally get pregnant, the money spending is going to start here right away. Now here, there's a wide range of services you can use between consulting or go all the way to our IVF. For us, we started with a consultation first. So in Vancouver, we use a facility called Olive Fertility Clinic. And in there, we worked with someone called Dr. Una. She was extremely professional and very helpful. She had us do many tests and also gave us different possible medicine that we may want to take to help us with this process. Now, in the end, we were successful after 4 months of consultation. This process have costed us about $800 all inclusive. However, if we weren't successful by month number 4, we were recommended that we should move on to a next stage, and likely we should consider something called IVF. They can range anywhere on average from $15,000 all the way to $30,000 plus. Now, if you're someone who is trying for a child or want to try in the future, you might be looking at IVF and thinking you don't need it. It's something that's very rare and you may not need to prepare for this. But I can tell you from financial planning experience, every 10 couples that I've worked with, at the end, about 3 to 4 actually ending up have to use IVF to get their baby. So this is why I want to bring this up. If you really want to have a child, maybe you do have to end up spending this much money before you even get pregnant. Now this stage is actually the easy part, getting pregnant. Next, let's talk about during pregnancy. This is where a lot of surprises, I would say, can pop up and really cost you a lot of money. Now here, I want to mention specifically a couple of big categories that we ended up getting some surprises or have to spend more money on. And the first category or test that you may have to do or want to do, and one of the tests is the NIP test, which I believe is a test for Down syndromes. And we did it with the Olive Fertility Clinic. It has costed us $700. Now for most people, actually your test probably stops here. That's probably all you want to do. However, for us, we ran into some surprises because during the pregnancy process, our family doctor and our OB have both made different mistakes, which had made us having to get an emergency ultrasound twice. There were no public facility available to accommodate us. At the end, we actually have to go to downtown and pay for, the company is called Vancouver Ultrasound. But anyhow, in the end, it actually costed us $1,200 extra that we didn't plan to spend because during the process, someone actually made some mistakes. However, that's actually not it in terms of tests. We actually had to do even more that we also didn't plan for. But let's talk about that in the next category, and that has something to do with traveling. So baby moon is a really popular thing for most parents to do during pregnancy. Now, usually people is going to go for a 1 or 2 weeks vacation somewhere like Hawaii. And usually these things are a little bit easier to budget for. You are paying anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 for the whole trip. So as long as you have planned for it, you should be okay, and you're also going for a short time. The only thing I would pay attention to is if the wife can still get travel insurance while pregnant, because if it is excluded and you guys can't get it, maybe you don't want to leave Canada, you want to go somewhere within Canada still, so you still get MSP, you still get coverage. I want to raise more awareness for people that are not from Canada. It might be returning to their home country, and you likely want to spend a little bit longer time. And this is exactly what we chose to do, and this is where we ran into a lot of surprises and unbudgeted costs. So we were originally going to fly in December, and unfortunately the day that we flew, we ran into one of the worst snowstorms in 2022. Now, we were actually on the plane during that day, but we had to deplane. The plane was at the end delayed for 30 or 40 hours. I don't even remember. Our luggage were missing. It was super chaotic. My wife is pregnant, so I'm not gonna have her sleep on the airport floor because we had to book a hotel next door at River Rock Casino for 2 nights. And of course, the cost is very, very high. It went from originally, I think, $150 to $200 per night. At the end, we had to pay $350, almost $400 per night because everybody was booking the same hotel. On top of that, I decided to upgrade her into business class just so she have a more comfortable ride to Hong Kong. And that costed us an extra couple $1,000 as well. Now, once we're finally in Hong Kong, just to make sure the baby is okay, the heart rate and everything is good, even though my wife is feeling normal, we decided to pay for a private ultrasound the next day in Hong Kong. On top of that, we also have to pay for a 20-week structural scan for ultrasound to really see if the baby is growing okay. I didn't know about this. It was a lack of research on my part. So at the end, we had to pay for 2 private ultrasound, and it costed us about $1,700 Canadian in total. So all in all, when I look at all our spending, at the end we spent about $5,000 extra in budget. Now moving on, let's talk about the next category that you're probably going to spend a lot of money on, and that is the baby essentials. Now within there are 2 categories that you're likely going to spend a lot more money on, and the first category is stroller and baby car seat. For us, we did many research. At the end, we went for the upper baby car seat because we believe it probably provides the best in terms of cost versus functionality and build quality. And because we do plan to travel even with a baby or toddler in the future, so we also gotten another travel stroller. That's the Yo-Yo brand. Originally, it would have costed us about $2,500 if we were to get everything brand new. But luckily, we had a friend who have both strollers, that the travel and the upper cruise that we're looking for, so they were able to sell it to us at half price. Only the car seat we had to get at brand new price. At the end here, we spent about $1,200. And this is what I'm going to recommend as well when you're looking for these big ticket items. Do look at Facebook Marketplace first or ask friends or colleagues. I mean, I don't have a comparison. I haven't used a brand new stroller before, but I doubt it has much difference, a brand new versus a secondhand. So I do recommend going for secondhand in this category. Now, one last tip I do want to share here, and this is something that we didn't learn until very, very late, which could have saved us more money, is if you are looking to buy something brand new from places like West Coast Kids, which is a very popular place in Vancouver, they do have a baby shower registry that you can open and add all your item or wish list inside. Wait 2 weeks and actually close the registry even if no one were purchasing anything from it. If you do that, West Coast Kids is going to automatically give you a 10% off on everything. So this can potentially save you a lot of money. So make sure you try or you ask about these things. All right, the next category that you may spend a lot of money on is electronics. Now, there are many, many things you can buy for your newborn baby, but the only 2 that I'm going to recommend you probably are going to need right away and just spend some money on are sterilizer and bottle warmers. These 2 things we're using almost every day. Sometimes your baby, like such as Harper, just doesn't want the breast and a certain specific hours. They only want the bottle. So if your baby end up being like that, a bottle warmer is going to come in super handy. And of course, sanitizer. We're using it almost every day, multiple times a day. So you definitely want to spend some money on there. And the brand that we'll recommend is the Baby Brothers. After doing some research and using it ourselves, we think it's super well built and very easy to use. For this part, it's not going to cost as much as a stroller. In total, we spent about $250 here. Now, other than these 2, you're going to find many items that are super fancy and it has its apps, it connects to apps or whatever is remote control. I'm going to recommend as a newborn parent 7 weeks in, do not get any of these fancy things yet. Probably going to be super exhausted as parents, and you're likely not going to have any energy to use any of these fancy apps. Now, moving on, second last category that you may spend a lot of money on are furnitures. Only 2 things I would recommend you here that you should look at and prepare before the baby here are crib/bassinet and also a drawer for baby clothes. Now for bassinet, what we did based on our friend's suggestion is we got a playpen that can be turned, the top can be turned into a bassinet for the first 6 months instead of getting an actual bassinet, because they said it really makes no difference, and a bassinet is cost almost 3 times as much as a playpen option. So that's what we got to start with. I'm going to let you know later on in the other stage, we actually ended up getting a bassinet actually. But I'm still going to recommend you get that first and don't get a bassinet right away. The second piece of item that we got was actually the baby drawer and also the crib. Now, as for baby drawer and crib, we were going to get them separately in different brands. But after shopping, researching, and looking around, we actually end up going for a much more expensive option. Number one reason is actually supplies is very limited when we're looking. A lot of our choices were not available straight up. And second reason is really the standalone baby drawers more often than not is very flimsy. So at the end, I believe we went to a brand called Urban Baby and we got a matching crib and drawer. Now the crib can be used from month 6 and on, and it can be turned into a toddler bed. I believe they said Harper could be using it all the way until she's like 5 or 6 years old, which is, is a very long-term investment. So that's why we got them. As for the drawer, it's actually a very large drawer that does not look like a baby drawer at all, as you can see in the picture. Harper could be using it all the way until she's in high school or even university. It would not feel like a baby furniture. It is built extremely sturdy, very, very heavy, so no worry about flipping over. I can say that it is well worth every penny. If I were to design this again, even if the supply is not an issue, I would buy the same set all over again because the drawer is such a nice furniture piece to use and it really, really made things easier, especially with how spacious it is. However, because we went for something that's a lot more sturdier and well built, we actually end up spending $2,500 on the whole set instead of the $1,000 that we have budgeted. Now, other than these things, I actually don't recommend getting anything else. Like I was saying, those rocking chair, which is super, super comfortable. We're tempted to buy them until your baby is here. Because as you can see in the next step, in the next stage, once your baby is here, you may find your baby like Harper to be very specific and they only like a certain things. So the final big ticket items that you may have to start spending here, and this is something that we did, are different programs and treatments that you will be paying money for. Now here there are two major items. The first one are pre-baby courses or prenatal courses. In Vancouver, the person we went with is called Kathleen. She's a registered nurse. She spent about 4 lessons with us. Each lesson is about 3 hours, so 12 hours in total. And she prepped us all the way from, in labor, all the way to after baby is born. And also if you have to do a C-section, which we ended up having to do. This is one of the most well spent money, in my opinion. It really, really helped us to be prepared to be a newborn parents. For here, I think we spent about $700 or $800 in total. Now, second item that you may have to spend money on are things like massages and also pelvic floor treatments. For pelvic floor treatment, this is more for mothers getting ready for that natural birth to help you stretch yourself down there so then you don't tear any muscle or you tear less. Now, because we were expecting a natural birth, we start going to it in the 3rd trimester. So for the final 3 to 4 months every week, and it's going to cost about $100 per week. At the end, we actually had to get an emergency C-section. So we actually did not get to benefit from these exercises that my wife was going through. Now, the second item that we actually end up spending quite a bit of money on are massage sessions. Because Heidi has scoliosis, minor scoliosis. So childbearing, especially towards the 3rd trimester, becomes very, very painful for her in the lower back. And here it's going to cost anywhere from $100 to $150 per session here for every week. So we did it for about 12 weeks straight. So together we spent about $250 per week on average, starting from the 3rd trimester. So that's 12 weeks. So in total, that's about $3,000 here. And then next, let's go into the final stage, which is after your newborn is here, because guess what? You have more money to spend. So here now your baby is home. So what is there to spend? The first one is an in-house nanny. Now, depending on different cultures, but for us as Chinese, in the first month for the mother after having baby, she actually have to stay at home and let her body rest. And during this month, her meal becomes very specific on what she eats because it can also affect her milk supply. And this is actually very, very expensive to our surprises. On average, if we want to hire a nanny just cooking 3 meals and not taking care of baby, not living with you guys, on average, it's going to cost anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000 just in labor cost, and this payment is going to give you services anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah, so quite expensive. I was actually telling my wife maybe she should start a business in this area after she has recovered. Now, other than the first 4 to 6 weeks after both parents, or if you're returning back to work like some of my clients, then you may have to actually continue to hire a nanny just to take care of baby, even part-time. Now, clients usually pay anywhere from $1,500 to $2,600 per month ongoing for this service. So that is also something to budget for and keep in mind. You also may have to pay for continued treatment like ourselves. So for us, at the very least, massage is probably going to be something that we'll pay for, if not weekly, at least bi-weekly, just because, you know, breastfeeding also, it's pretty bad on the back. Now, moving on, one last thing that we didn't expect to spend, but we end up having to spend on is a very, very expensive bassinet. Before having a baby, we were both thinking that it's not going to be that difficult to soothe the baby and put the baby to bed. Well, it ends up to be maybe true for some baby, but definitely not Harper. She basically doesn't know how to put herself to sleep, and this is the problem with most baby, they don't soothe themselves. But for Harper, it's especially difficult because she's ultra sensitive about her surroundings. We're obviously extremely tired by week 3, and we were very sleep deprived. So after researching different methods and different recommendations, one that have popped up constantly was getting a snoo. Now, we bought it from Indigo with 10% off, and there is a 30-day trial. So we're thinking that if it doesn't make a difference after 30 days, we'll just return this. I was secretly hoping that it wouldn't make a difference because I don't want to spend almost $2,000 on a rocking bassinet that we're just going to be using for 6 months. At the end, I can tell you that it made a difference night and day, because it actually is able to soothe Harper back to sleep. You know, when she starts crying, instead of you having to go there and carry her and find out what's going on, you can actually take out your phone, turn on the rocking setting to a higher level, and see if that will soothe her first. Usually it does actually buy us anywhere from 30 minutes to another hour and a half, which translates to a lot more sleep for us. But this is also something I want to bring up, is because you may be watching this and you're saying, nowhere in hell I'm spending, even if my baby, you know, is a difficult sleeper. Well, this is a very good example of how being sleep deprived can push you to just swipe your credit card and not really think much about it. Because, you know, by week 3 of not sleeping every day, you would have no choice. You're not going to have any energy to carry your baby anymore. So this is also as a, you know, in-person example to show you that things likely not going to work out as you expected, and this is why you should budget for it. And worst case or best case is you don't need to use that money. Even as a planner, when it comes to me with so much experience looking at other people, when I had to go through it myself, things were just popping up that we weren't expecting, we didn't anticipate, and it ended up costing us to go well above our budget. So this whole video is trying to raise awareness and let you see as well how we weren't able to really budget very carefully or accurately, and that might be something that's happening to you as well. So this is why you definitely want to be ready and save a little bit more on the side. So moving on, let's wrap up this video by talking about some recommendation or tips or tricks that we have learned or we share with our parents or my clients when they're having their baby. So first, let's talk about cost saving. First tip is that know all your scheduled tests and scan that you need to do ahead of time. So don't be like me where we're in Hong Kong and I realized we're going to do a 20-week scan that I wasn't aware of. And number 2 is try not to travel when times where weather can seriously affect your travel. So if I was to do this over again, we're probably going to travel in October instead of December. Third tip is Facebook Marketplace, friends, family, etc. is really a great source for secondhand item. Fourth tip, keep anything newborn sizes to a minimum because you're probably going to upsize them very, very quickly. Fifth tip, diapers, wet wipes, you seriously should only get them in Costco, and they always have discount, they're always on promotion, so make sure you check there. Just this part alone is probably worth the Costco membership. And lastly, I would say don't pay too much attention to those YouTube essential lists. Like myself, especially, obsessively watched these lists before Harper came. And a lot of my buying decisions were based on these lists. At the end, after baby is here, I realized most of them is actually not very applicable to our situation. And luckily, we were able to return a lot of them. Now, finally, here's some tips on your income. Most treatments that you're doing, anywhere from massage and also IVF, etc., can be treated as medical expense, which means if your total spending is over 3% of your income, you can actually claim tax credit on it up to a maximum. Second tip is know that these kind of tax credit doesn't have to go from January to December. That's not how you accumulate the medical expense. It can start from any month to 12 months from here. So for example, if you have a baby in March, that's when you get pregnant, maybe you want to go from March to March or June to June because that's when most of the expenses started. Now next, let's talk about EI. Know that EI maximum pay is about $650 per week, but you may not get the maximum depending on how many hours you're working. I believe we end up getting $590 or $600. So it definitely wasn't the maximum. So do keep in mind you may not get that. And also know that for maternity and paternity EI, there's no clawback on the income. It's not like a regular EI. So if you do have some income on the side, you're not expected to have to pay the EI back to government. However, your EI is still taxable at the end of the day, so do expect some tax coming April if you have some side income as well. And also for self-employed like myself, you likely will not get EI if you go on mat or pad leave, so do keep in mind of these things as well. Now moving on, for income, I would recommend every single person budget before you start trying for a kid. Here you want to know your monthly expense on average. And I'm going to recommend you have at least 6 to 9 months of these expenses set aside as cash in a saving account or a GIC, etc. before you have a kid. Because like I was saying, for us, we went over budget, but luckily we have emergency fund so that it didn't really affect us too much. However, if you are self-employed like myself, I'm going to recommend you up that emergency fund to 9 to 12 months just because you do not get EI as well. And you may be so busy or so exhausted that you actually can't go to work and continue to make money. And my second last tip is that childcare is dependent on your net family income. And because it is relying on the net income, my final tip is that when you buy RRSP for your family, not only will you get some tax refund and tax saving from the RRSP itself, it will actually lower your net income on paper, so you can also potentially get a higher child benefit because of this. But on this part, I'm going to recommend you talk to your accountant to figure out the exact ratio of TFSA and RRSP you should be buying. Alright, so that's everything for today. Thank you all for sticking with me, and also thank you for everyone that have been asking me how we're doing, how the baby is, and how's parenthood, and also for people that are waiting for my next video that have been sending me messages. Here is my video finally after 6 months. For next week, I am actually going to talk about corporation for many corporate owners, whether you should be investing in RRP, TFSA, and also real estate, etc., and how you should extract money out. So next week is going to be about corporation. Now, if you have any questions or feedback, do let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, if you like these kind of videos, I do upload them 8:30 EST every Tuesday or maybe every Friday, depending on my schedule going forward. But I do try to keep it weekly going forward. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell button to get all the notifications in the future. This is Jacky. I hope you found this interesting. I'll see you next week. Bye!